All right, everybody, welcome to the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire number 47. What is happening? This is wild. So we've got a really big update that I wasn't planning on giving because I didn't know that we'd get here today. As you know, we are on a mission to hike 1 million miles for diabetes awareness. And today, like minutes ago, we hit 10,000 miles. So we have 10,000 miles logged for diabetes awareness. So there's 990,000 left to go until we reach our goal. And we also just hit $10,000 raised. So this is like a 10K times 2 day. This is so exciting. So I'm Sydney Williams. I'm your host. This is the Hiking My Feelings virtual campfire. And this clearly is not the van. I'm house sitting for one of our board members today. And we are in Lafayette, California, which is the land of the Chochenyo and Miwok people. So we are not at Beach Hut Deli anymore. Thank you so much, Tyler and the Beach Hut team, for hosting us for the first 3 months of this year. It is April 1st. None of this is a joke. It is all 100% true. And I'm really excited to welcome Erik Douds, the founder of Diabadass, to the campfire today. So Erik, come on down. Price is right. Erik is a legend in the diabetes community, just straight up. So I'm going to do a quick intro and read his bio while he dances and hollers around. So Erik Douds is an adventure filmmaker and educator living with type 1 diabetes. He is based outside of New York City. Yet many nights are spent in the outdoors with his bike, Dark Roast. Oh, you named your bike. We'll have to talk about that. His YouTube channel focuses on travel, technology, and managing type 1 diabetes, and his stories have included biking across America, living in Ethiopia, hiking in New Zealand, 2 failed skydiving attempts. What? You're still here. You didn't fail. We'll talk about that too, and other adventures. Erik creates content for top outdoor brands like REI, Pearl iZUMi, Arc'teryx, Revo, Adventure Cycling, Sea to Summit, and BioLite. Trips include biking the Trans-America Trail, running the Copenhagen Marathon, and touring Alaska. Diabadass.com shares expert knowledge through online courses that use step-by-step videos and written instructions to show others living with diabetes how to go anywhere and do anything. He has spoken at American Diabetes Association's Tour de Cure, competed wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, competed for Team Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund, writes for Diabetes Daily, and has been recognized as an exceptional donor by the Harvey E. Nussbaum MD Society. What? Hi, Erik. Welcome.
Whew.
You sound cool on paper, right?
Yes.
When people read my bio, I'm like, wow, I sound so important.
It's an honor. It's fun. Many lives lived.
Yes. So should we, do we want to jump right in and tell people about what we're giving away so people can get excited? Or you want to just start there and then we'll talk about you and why it's important that we're doing this?
I would, because I've been motivated. I've already gotten off the calls of people who've been motivated to bring together Diabadass and the community there with Hiking My Feelings to join the Take a Hike Diabetes Challenge. I know today I got out for a hike, even finagled an Instagram TV where I positioned my phone wedged into a tree to talk about all the gear. And, I think something we've chatted about is those differences of type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And I always love, I've had this disease now for over 10 years and just love when we can find more allies to do things that are fun in the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's, I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of walk through this. So this is our Take a Hike Diabadass giveaway. So for those that aren't familiar, we'll talk a little bit about Diabadass here in a minute, but if you are a person living with diabetes and you want to learn from people with diabetes, Diabadass is the place to go for that kind of education. And so this campaign is a fun little partnership between Hiking My Feelings, Sydney and Barry, Diabadass, which Erik founded, and our friend Mike Joyce, who is a long distance backpacker with type 1 diabetes. And he was part of our campaign back in November when we did our pilot program for Take a Hike Diabetes. And he's also going to be creating some epic, insanely good content for us while he hikes the Continental Divide Trail from Mexico up to Canada via New Mexico and Colorado and Montana and some other states in between, because I'm not good at geography. But that trail is 3,100 miles. And so Mike is like one of the only people I know that has done long distance stuff like that with type 1, as far as the people that I'm aware of. So really excited to have him be involved with this too. So what's up for grabs? Like you're friends with the people at Untapped Maple. Tell people about like why Untapped is delicious and how they can score some.
First, yeah, it's the first 100 people are getting a sample from Untapped. I was like, if I had my bag next to me, but in terms of one of the essentials is low supplies while you're out hiking. So they make, everything's basically maple syrup based, but they have stroopwafels. They have Maple-Aid, which is a mix into their drink. And it's just one of those good things you grab and just throw in your backpack and keep everywhere. Like I have it in my car, I have it in my bags. And they're based out of Vermont, and the EMTs up there actually use Untapped to treat people who experience hypoglycemia so that when they pass out. So I'm like, imagine waking up when you pass out and have maple syrup in your mouth. But they're cool, rad company. That's for the first people that enter. I've got Revo on here. So Revo sunglasses, they've been a long time supporter. That's been one of the casual upgrades in my life, is polarized lenses, for people who are like, what's the difference between polarized glasses and not? And then you
everything.
Yeah. I'm like, if you've ever spent enough time outside, I'm like, if your face has felt a little like crunched up for way too long, you put on polarized glasses and you're like, oh my God, I actually have some relaxation. Like I'm actually protecting my eyes. It feels good.
Yeah. And then we've got a Hiking My Feelings prize pack. So we're doing a signed copy of the book, a trail journal, and a holographic sticker as well. And then you've got blue tech glasses. Man, we are just like crushing this for people. There's some great prizes available.
So this is Aspire, which is run by a type 1 diabetic, Peter Friedfeld, which I think is awesome.
Heck
Since
yeah.
diabetes affects people randomly, you never know what the involvement is. And so blue tech is, yeah, when you're just working behind the laptop forever. It's some infrared, like either way, it's one of those things where it blocks it and you're supposed to get way better sleep. And so it's nice for anyone who's working for a while.
Yes. And then we have 10 glucose revival necklaces. So Chris Maynard is the founder of Glucose Revival. He also lives with type 1. And he joined us in November as well for the first round of Take a Hike Diabetes for Diabetes Awareness Month last year. And this necklace is so cool. So I don't have one on me, unfortunately, but it is, it's a tube. And in the tube, there is 15 grams of quick acting glucose, which is like super important to have for those low moments. And there's also the blue circle is like the charm on the necklace. And so that was actually one of the first times that I had like an in-depth conversation with Chris, was about unity in the diabetes community and how we need to get behind the blue circle and make that as recognizable as the pink ribbon. So we've got a lot to chat about today, but we'll keep going through prizes. So if you enter your email, you can win any of those things. So the first 100 people get Untapped maple syrup, one pair of Revo. Well, not the first 100 people get a Revo, but we also, if you enter your email, you can also win the pair of polarized glasses, the Hiking My Feelings prize pack, the blue tech glasses, and one of 10 glucose revival necklaces. And then to win bonus entries, if you follow our progress and stories on social media, so follow Hiking My Feelings, follow Erik, follow Mike, join Team Diabadass for the Take a Hike Diabetes Challenge. I'll talk about that. So we've already got a pretty good crew growing for your Diabadass team. So for anybody that's not familiar with the Take a Hike Diabetes Challenge portion of our campaign, that's what we're talking about when we say we're raising money and we've got these miles and participants joining us. So if you go to hikingmyfeelings.org/diabetes, there's a box where you can click on join the challenge, and that will take you to our friends over at Kilter at their website. So they're running all the registration for this program, and they're our technology partner for tracking miles. So once you register, it's $15, $35, or $50, and you get sweet prizes at the different registration tiers. Then you're going to pick Team Diabadass because that's why we're doing this. We really want to drive some participation for Erik's team. So at the end of the year, he can say, hey, we've got thousands of Diabadasses hiking thousands of miles and raising thousands of dollars for diabetes. So it's all good. Join Team Diabadass. And then once you do that, then you sync your favorite fitness tracker. Right now we support Strava, Garmin, Map My Run, Google Fit, Apple Health, and Fitbit. You sync that with the Kilter app, and then they start talking. And then every mile that you hike, walk, run, jog, roll in your wheelchair, we want this to be as accessible to everybody as possible. Then those miles count towards our total. So on that note, what we're in the business of over here is helping people do behavior change, take action, develop good habits. And the benefits of spending time outside are well documented. We know this spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and of course, physically when you're moving your body. It's all good stuff. Promotes healthy blood sugar levels. And also, we are dealing kind of with this CDC recommendation of like walking at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So in order to be able to win some of these extra prizes, our partners at Solomon are giving away a free pair of shoes every month, like a whole free pair of shoes, not just one shoe, 2 shoes for free, and a 6-person house party tent from our friends at UST, and a Vagabond Trail backpack from Gossamer Gear. All you have to do to be entered to win those things is log 4 activities during the month of April, just 4. So like 1 per week. The more you do, the more entries you get. So every time you go out and hit the trail, and that's like, if you go out and hit the trail twice a day, if you do it in the morning and in the evening, or you're walking your dog, or you're taking a walk to the mailbox, wherever you're going, turn on your tracker, track those miles for diabetes awareness, and you could be entered to win for every activity that you do. And then we've got stuff like, we're looking for you to share some stories. Talk to us a little bit, Erik, about the questions that we're asking folks and what we're going to do with their answers.
Yeah, I think one of the huge things I've learned over the years is just learning from people, learning from different experiences. And I always remember joking, like coming after a trip and be like, gosh, I wish I knew this before. So we're asking people to contribute their voice, asking how nature helps them heal. So why do you actually get outside? It's different for every person. And then also, what gear might you bring? So what might you pack in your car or your backpack? And together we'll use that to share on social media. And then ideally we'll make a collaborative resource list. So people, when they're going out on a hike, can use that if they live with diabetes, any form of diabetes, but also it's really helpful when someone is hiking with you, they can keep this in the back of their mind and say, oh, like I know Erik, I'm hiking with Erik, and I know that he loves to have some extra carbs on him. So it's helpful for me to bring an apple or a banana or some fruit snacks. And that really just helps build that advocacy and that allyship that, anyone really can do.
Yes. So once you enter your email and you put in your name, then you're entered to win those top prizes. And then once you join the Take a Hike Diabadass team, then you're eligible to win shoes and tents and backpacks. So everybody, I'm sure if you I love these kinds of contests. So we're using Gleam as the platform. It's really easy to do. You click through these different green boxes. And for the people that are listening to the podcast, we'll have the link to the Diabadass giveaway in the show notes. So don't worry. You can also go to hikingmyfeelings.org/Diabadass to enter. So when you go through and you click these boxes, then you get your points, and then you just keep logging activities on Kilter, and you're really super good to go. So we're all set. That's the whole campaign. And this is open through, when did we say, the 14th?
14th to then I think Mike is leaving a few days after for the Continental Divide. I actually just found out another type 1 diabetic is going to be on the trail, Julie Robertson, who I hiked the Grand Canyon with. So I got to link them up, but then we'll wish them farewell.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have 14 days to enter. This is not a joke. This is not like us pulling your chain for April Fool's Day. This is real life, real prizes, and everything's legit. So we woke up this morning and Barry shows me his phone, and it's a post from Solomon, and they had these dog boots. And I was like, oh my God, they're so cute. And then I was like, wait, it's April 1st. Man, I was really excited. I thought Solomon was going to make dog shoes, but they're not. It's just a joke. So we're not kidding. We're actually really excited to give this stuff away.
Purely serious. So there was a lot of stuff in your bio where I was like, we're going to have to talk about that.
Can we just, off the top of my head, you mentioned 2 failed skydiving attempts. As a former skydiver, I beg to differ. Failed means you died and you're still here on this podcast. So what does that mean when you say 2 failed skydiving attempts?
That was, so I'm like keeping track of the years is difficult, but maybe in 2018, I was taking the train across America as part of the Diabadass tour, just meeting community members, organizations, anyone that would host me. So this is how my bike trip went from 3 months, where I went from the East Coast all the way up down the West Coast, and then I was staying with people. And there's an incredible group of type 1 diabetics down in Texas. And we were like, let's make the largest group of type 1 diabetics skydiving at the same time. And the first one, there was a weather delay. I guess we won't say a failed skydiving attempt. And then the second one, there's also hail. So it never happened.
Yeah. Well, shoot. So have you ever done it?
Way long ago, but not with this group. So yeah, it's an incredible group actually. So it's like the Brzezowski family. They're outside of Houston, Rob Howe. And it's pretty exciting because over that span of time, Jerry Brzezowski is actually a type 1 diabetic who wanted to be a pilot, and it was one of those limitations where you couldn't. And just recently, he actually got his commercial license through the FAA, which just changed this year.
Yeah.
In terms of some amazing diabetes advocacy.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And Chris Maynard was in the Air Force and was unable to be a pilot because of that. Like that was his dream. And then they're like, yeah, sorry, no, you can't. Wow. So, well, good. I'm glad it was just weather delays and not like anybody actually died, because that would be sad. So let's talk about this bike across the country thing. I'm curious about how that went for you. And I know that the people that you've met along the way have really solidified your passion for creating Diabadass and the spaces that you occupy. So walk us through like the idea behind the bike tour and what it actually was.
Yeah, I think I've always had this push and pull in a lot of people with type 1 diabetes, especially like an invisible disease. It's always like, what half of my life does this take up? And I've always been in advocacy, but my background's actually environmental policy, and that's what I did professionally, or yeah, I guess did now in the past, sustainability management. And so I was in the city, New York City, for 2 years working, and that's where Ethiopia and some other stuff mentioned. And eventually, I was 26 at the time and thought I would love to see other cities. I'd like to take a van, and then there's a type 1 diabetic dinner group that gets together, and that's where I met Annalisa Vandenberg. And she biked across the US as a teenager. We were talking, and she goes, Eric, I was thinking about what you're saying, and what would you think about biking across the US following the Trans-America Trail? And at the time, I had the chalkboard out weighing the pros and cons. Legitimately, the company I left, I had an interview with, and they offered me a job and said, do you want to start on Monday? And this is when I was going back and forth, not knowing if I should leave. And I told them then and there, I was like, first, I have to bike across the US. Left probably 2 weeks later with absolutely no training. And it was just incredible. It was Annalisa and then another rider, Taylor. And we followed Adventure Cycling, which is responsible for making the national bike routes in the US. And it was transformative in terms of physical. It was pretty incredible, but really, it was a lot of it was in like an emotional or mental exploration of what does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to go through those small towns and just end up meeting so many people and not being able to choose who you meet because you stop every 50 miles. And I was biking from the East Coast to the West Coast because I was meeting Connected in Motion, which is a Canadian nonprofit, to go hike the northern tip of Vancouver Island. And so that's why I was like, I got 3 months, I got to show up in Canada. How cool would it be to arrive on bike? And that's what kicked it off.
That sounds kind of like how Hiking My Feelings started. I was like, I had just quit a job. I went for a hike across an island. I came home and was like, this house is too big and we have way too much stuff. What are we doing? And I was like, let's sell everything we own, move into a van, and then we'll just start driving. And then it ended up being just like this little leapfrog around the US, talking at different outdoor stores and for different organizations and stuff. But I think that there's something really special. Like it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like if this was one of those things where you tried to plan it out ahead of time, it might not have ever happened. Is that fair to say? Because I mean, like, you left 2 weeks after you were like, I think I'm going to go do this. And then 2 weeks later, you're on a bike. Like, that's pretty wild.
It is. And I think one of the motivational parts of YouTube specifically, because I remember actually watching a lot of van life channels and talking about that switch into this different kind of living. And this video after video said the hardest part is getting out the door. The hardest part is getting out the door. And you can apply that mentality to so many aspects of your life. And now I meet so many people and they say, I want to be doing what you're doing. And I'm like, you can do it, but the hardest part is getting out the door.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then it's just remarkable why the trip has lasted so long, and now why it is what I'm doing full time is because of how many stories I ended up hearing, how many people welcome me into their homes, how many families, because there's so many aspects, not only of this disease and also the connections to this disease, that you realize, you know, I'm a 16-year-old that got diagnosed. I'm now 30, but I always managed my disease by myself. I always had these certain privileges. And so you start seeing all these different angles to the same story. And that definitely motivated me to keep meeting people and continue the journey.
Man, I really like what you've got going on with the storytelling as far as type 1 goes. So when it comes to Diabadass, is this a community specifically for people with type 1, or is it open to folks with all types of diabetes?
I'd say the big vision, and it's amazing having Jade tune into this interview, but you know, the big vision for me is actually being able to attract 1,000 founding members and having a member-driven organization for storytelling. And the reason behind that dream is there are so many stories that I've experienced and witnessed, and in my own mind, changed my perception of how people living with type 1 diabetes, which there are particular ways to manage this disease, but there's also particular stereotypes that go with this disease. And a lot of us build up this narrative of how we should be relating to people with type 2 diabetes or other forms. And actually through a ride hosted by the American Diabetes Association, you know, I met this woman, Jean Medley, type 2 diabetes, was 65 or 65 plus, but over 250 pounds. She's 5'2", and all of a sudden just woke up one day and decided to move and change her life. And I was mentioning her name as she just signed up for this hike. And she was the first person who didn't have type 1 diabetes that understood not only all the physical elements of this disease. So we went on a hike and she's like, Eric, I brought snacks, I brought sandwiches, I got juices for you. Like, I got the whole gamut because I know what you do. But from a mental connection, I remember her saying, I can't believe your community is able to find hope when there is no cure. And for me being Jean, knowing that, you know, it just took me this moment to switch over and then start taking my life back. And she was just resonating, like, people living with type 1 diabetes are these superheroes because you're optimistic, you're smiley, and you're overcoming these obstacles. And that's where you realize it's like, yeah, we are allies. We are on the same path. And it's amazing because, you know, like, I've made videos about her. She's now an ambassador for TerraTrike because of those videos. And like, I just got off the phone with her before this call. And we're like, when are we planning a ride? And so, like, I would love Diabadass to be this blend of a storytelling medium and then courses to actually teach people, hey, here's how you can get out the door, because it is difficult. There are physical barriers, there are mental barriers, but you know, we're doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a couple things that you touched on too, and I'd be interested to hear more about is like, what are some of the, like, I am fully aware of the stigma around type 2 because that's what I live with, but what are some of the stigmas around type 1 in particular that you've had to overcome?
If we even just go back 10 years, the amount of digital advocacy has transformed, where we are getting a lot more of connecting points and stories and being able to identify ourselves in various places. But there's still so many blank stares. There's still so many questions we ask that don't have an answer.
Yeah.
And then there are also so many different factors that impact our blood sugars in dramatic ways every minute and every 5 minutes and every 30 minutes that is different to every person. And so there's never a one size fits all solution. And we're having dramatic swings. So if you talk to, this is where I'm like, I have an amazing medical team and amazing parents, bless their hearts. When I'm like, hey, I'm going off to the border of Ethiopia and South Sudan and I have type 1 diabetes, there's no following that up with here's your resource list.
Right.
And you have to prepare people mentally to say you're going to be dealing with a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges, but you just need to have a resilient mindset. Like I always tell people, a lot of times my mindset is like a weather report where I kind of know what today looks like and maybe tomorrow, but then after that, it's more and more shades of gray. And I think that's been really helpful in my diabetes management where, I was making a video about my hike today and I'm like, every single hike, I usually have a vial of insulin and syringe on me because all the technology I have easily could die and I need to have a backup option. And so that's what takes years to learn. And then you hope by sharing your own story and sharing the story of others and then gathering all that information in one place. Someone that says, okay, I want to go hike today, you can say, hey, here's all this knowledge just to make sure you have like the best start possible so you feel confident going out there.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the important things that we're trying to kind of co-create here with this giveaway and asking questions of like, what do you bring with you on a hike? What kind of questions do you have about hiking? So we can make getting outdoors more accessible and at least take away, because I've found like when like with skydiving in particular, that's where I learned like the more I know, the less scared I am, because the act of jumping out of a plane is not a natural act. That's not something that normal people do. There's nothing natural about jumping out of a moving airplane. But with training, with knowledge, with resources, like you can feel more prepared for what might come your way. And it sounds like living life with type 1 diabetes in particular is very much that way. I'm fortunate, like I live with type 2 and it's managed by a pretty solid nutrition plan and hiking as much as humanly possible. But I don't have nearly the amount of things to take into consideration on a minute by minute basis. Even though I have a chronic illness and I will be living with this for the rest of my life, the way that we manage it is very different from somebody with type 1. So when it comes to like your average day, like how many diabetes related decisions are you making if you had to guess? Like what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Hey, hit the snooze. That's not, I'm trying to actually embrace. I woke up at 6 this morning. No, I mean, it's amazing to think about the technology that we have. So my grandfather was diagnosed in 1943 and insulin was invented, I don't know, a decade before that. And, now I probably have some of the best technology that's available on the market. So I have a Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor in my arm that doesn't even require calibrations anymore. So every 5 minutes on my iPhone, I'm getting a trend. For those of you listening, but I'm holding up what looks like an AirPod case, but this is a Riley Link. So this is part of the do-it-yourself open source automated insulin pump. And that has helped automate my background insulin rates, automate the decisions around mealtime. And so a lot of those decisions are going to the back of my mind, but it's easily every 5 minutes you're thinking about things. Or because I was diagnosed at the age of 16, I tell people, I'm turning 30, so I'm about to have half my life, without type 1 diabetes and half my life with type 1 diabetes. And I always say, like, I have these two mindsets, because especially when you're going in the outdoors, a lot of the signs and symptoms of a low blood sugar, which can be an emergency situation in 15 minutes or less, because if you don't treat it, you can pass out. All those signs of sweaty palms, feeling weak, your heart pounding, feeling like you're thirsty, those are all the exact same signs of hiking or biking or running, of going up a mountain. So you're constantly judging to yourself, is this what I say a normal feeling, or is this diabetes? And luckily I have some technology to give me insight, but that's this mental battle that, it's not only a mental battle, but it is a physical battle. Like I always tell, if there's one thing I think people don't understand, and what the outdoor industry still doesn't understand, is that for me, carbohydrates are my biggest limitation to outdoor activity. Carbohydrates are my emergency fuel supply. So that's like the biggest stereotype, where it's like, oh, that people with diabetes, sugar. I'm like, I take so much sugar with me on the outdoors, else I will probably pass out and die. Like even today, I was thinking about that. And so it's hard, there's so much to factor in. And, I think that's where, if you are going to do something new, one, having a community there to just build you up mentally, but then also say, hey, here are some tips. And hey, also you can start small. You don't have to go bike across the country. You don't have to go hike across the country. You can go walk your dog or go with a friends. And that's what's really nice. And I think that's what's really cool. Once again, like I mentioned, Jade tuning into this conversation, but she's up in Canada, and her and I get to chat and text and just say, check in on each other. And that's what's really been amazing about diabetes advocacy the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's so much room for more of that too. Like I'm so thankful that we have the technology with regards to like how we're doing advocacy, how we're all communicating, how connected we can be, just as individuals living with diabetes, but also from a getting people to give a shit perspective. Like that's the whole, like I was talking with my therapist, and we had this great event that we hosted last weekend, and I got back and like I just had like a bunch of clarity around what we're doing with Take a Hike Diabetes. And like at the root of this, ultimately, I just want people to know more about it and to understand it and to care about diabetes as much as they care about like cancer or insert other disease here. Because I feel like, and that was one of the interesting parts of the conversation I had with Chris for the article I wrote for Healthline about unity in the diabetes community, of which you were a part as well, was if we're on the same trajectory as the pink ribbon for breast cancer, it took about 15 years for the pink ribbon to like be a stronghold in American culture to where we could associate that with breast cancer. And now they've got pink socks in the NFL and like, it's just everywhere. But the blue circle for diabetes turns 15 this year. So hopefully we'll start seeing a lot more funding, a lot more research, and a lot more conversations like in the public sphere about diabetes, because like that's what we need in order to make any kind of movement. And I think when it comes from a unity perspective, like there is no cure for type 1 and type 2, they're like, there is no cure for type 2, but type 2, we have a bunch of different ways that we can manage and prevent it. And I think the thing that's really important is finding this unity. And like you were saying, like allies amongst the types of people living with diabetes, because there is so much more power in a group of 122 plus million than just like type 1s over here, like waving their own flag, right? Like we need to get the type 1s and the type 2s talking and like in the same room and at these tables where we can advocate for everything as like an entire population of people with diabetes, even if the different kinds of diabetes are wildly different, which they are. Like if we can unite as a disease population, I feel like we're going to make a lot more impact with 122 million of us than 1.5 in America, So what are some of the things that you've seen in the last few years that you're really excited about as far as advocacy goes? Like, have you been part of any really cool events? I mean, other than like Take a Hike Diabetes, like what else has gotten you really excited about the way things are evolving in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in terms of finding partnerships, finding community, and there are so many connections. I think that's what's so fascinating. Like I mentioned Aspire, who's part of this giveaway, but Peter, he runs a glasses company, right? So you have people who are randomly part of this community. None of us can leave it, but we all also have connections, right? So it's 122 million, but we also have the entire glasses industry at our disposal. I haven't listed them, but like New World CBD is part of this giveaway, and Justin, who it's a family company, he has type 1 diabetes, and
Oh,
we
no
met.
kidding. That's wild. I love this so much.
And for me personally, that's why I was like, I might as well pick it. I'm like, this is where I said I have all my stuff around me. But
Yeah.
the main reason I picked up a camera, and what people forget if they know me long enough, is I have no professional background in photography or film. My background's environmental policy. And the reason I picked up a camera and the true big picture of Diabadass is I picked up a camera because I truly felt people did not understand the story of diabetes. And there's so many aspects of that. You know, there's just the day to day, there's the whole insulin access, where I'm calling in from New Jersey, where we manufacture from multiple manufacturers. And I legitimately went to the pharmacy and got my claim denied for insulin. And that doesn't happen in Canada, doesn't happen in India, but it happens here in America, in New Jersey. And I just felt people needed to see that visually. People needed to follow my journey and see me bike across the country and then go buy insulin in Canada, follow that same journey of me in India, getting stuck there during the pandemic, and people sending me messages saying, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? And I'm like, I feel perfectly safe here. And in fact, one of my biggest fears that I have is not a problem here. But when I go back to New Jersey, my home state, where I'm a citizen, also one of the wealthiest states in the entire US, I have an insulin access problem. And I felt like if people visually saw that, and they visually saw not only my story, but other stories. So Diabadass puts on Summit, where we had Nicole Holt-Smith talk about her son, Alec, who passed away at the age of 26. And that like hit home to me, because I'm like, I'm 29 and I know this is real. And so that's like the extreme of it. But it's also like that's very much part of my story, and even my story of being in the outdoors, because biking across the US, Annalisa, who I was biking with, she had type 1 diabetes, but our parents were shipping us insulin to gas stations and people's homes only because we couldn't go to pharmacies to buy insulin. And so like for type 1 diabetics, especially, like 100% of us need insulin, but type 2 diabetics, they understand that. Some of them require it, but Jean, who I was with, who had or has type 2 diabetes, she's like, wow, I can't believe like you don't have the medicine that you need, and you have nothing to do this, and you have this for life, and that's not solved by us. And so like
It's
that's
criminal.
Why it is.
Frankly.
You know, but I think that's the emotional connection that's still missing in diabetes advocacy, in my opinion. You know, where we have moments where some people can go to Congress to lobby. We have moments where some kids can go and present, but enough people, and even in these conversations, like I'll talk to Owen Costello, who does the HIT classes for Diabadass. He's out in Ireland, and I was having a podcast with him. And after we were chatting, I was telling him about this, and he's like, wait, I didn't know this was an issue for you, because in Ireland, insulin is free. He's like, I didn't know Americans dealt with this problem. And, you know, I think of Jane Goodall, the amazing, you know, longtime conservationist, World War II survivor, I believe. But, you know, she says, like, we have to reach the heart before we change the mind. And I really hope that's like the next wave of diabetes advocacy, of showing films of programs like this, Take a Hike Diabetes, but also making films of Mike setting off and just say like, look, you can do this. Here are these people, here are these examples, and you can like resonate on screen. So like, you know, it's possible.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I'm really excited to work with Mike this year, because from a type 2 perspective, like what we're showcasing and like the motivation behind the Take a Hike Diabetes campaign was when we were on the road in 2019, we heard from a lot of people, and we heard in a lot of online conversations that they didn't feel safe or welcome or represented in the outdoors. And those folks also come from the populations with the highest prevalence of diabetes. So I was like, guys, hello, like I was able to heal myself and like I managed my diabetes by being outside. Like, what do you mean people don't feel safe? Like, I understand why they don't feel safe. I understand that this is a humongous problem, but I was like, can't we just like get over ourselves and make sure everybody feels awesome in the outdoors and that everybody has access to outdoor recreation? Because if we can, the community health improves. Like it is that simple. I know there's a lot of nuance and it's not that easy, but when it comes to like insulin and access and stuff like that, I'm like, how it is 2021 and we live in America where we are allegedly one of the most like advanced countries for like healthcare and stuff. And our people are dying because they don't have access to something that is free in most of the rest of the world. Like, how is this actually possible? And why don't more people give a shit? Like, it blows my mind. And so like, one of the things I'm really excited about with Mike is like, so me and Barry are walking around different metropolitan areas to showcase urban outdoor adventures. Like, you don't have to go all the way to a city park or a state park or a national park. Like, you can find outdoor healing in the spaces where you work, live, and play. Whereas Mike's like, I'm living with type 1 and I'm about to go hike across the entire west side of the country. Like, for people with type 2, we need to figure out how to get them outside and feeling awesome in the outdoors. Like, just from a safety perspective, like I can go walk outside without facing violence. Like, that is an important aspect of what we're doing. But also just like, when I hear about the way, like I loved your video and I love your list, and Aya made a list of like what she brings with her on hikes, and Mike has got like inhalable insulin, and there's so much technology that's out there that makes this possible. But it's kind of like, if we're talking in sweeping generalizations, it's like folks with type 1, they might not have the physical barriers as far as like fitness levels to getting outdoors. Like, you're a young, healthy guy who's living with type 1 diabetes. You're not overcoming like obesity or some kind of other comorbidity of type 2. And so for type 1 folks, we're like, it's possible. Like, you can live with type 1 and go outside and recreate safely. Like, from you're not going to die because your blood sugar is not going to go low and you're not going to be lost in the woods kind of perspective. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes down to access and safety for everybody. Like, whether that's access to insulin, access to the outdoors, safety, just being in a body that is not white, cisgendered, or straight male, like that. Anything outside of that is kind of a question mark in the outdoors these days. So it's really interesting to see how we can take these two communities that we all want the same thing. Like, that was one of the things about the tour the campaign that we're doing, was like, when it comes to unity in the diabetes community, like I have never met a person with diabetes that's like, you know what I love? Diabetes. Like, there's nobody that has it that's like, I'm so psyched to be living with diabetes. I don't know anybody that says that. I mean, like, I'm grateful for my diagnosis because it radically changed my life, and none of this, gesturing broadly around the world, would be possible if I didn't get diagnosed with diabetes. But one thing we all have in common across the board is that like, this sucks. Like, given the choice, we wouldn't be doing this. So my last question for you, Erik, is like, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it over a community or a problem, or if people could have more understanding or stop a certain kind of behavior or start doing something else, like, what would your magic wand solve as far as life with diabetes is concerned?
There's a lot in there. I mean, I will say at the core, and this has definitely changed as I'm 29 and 30, but it is really a tough pill for me to swallow, the insulin access crisis in America. That's been particularly revealed as I travel. You know, they say as you travel, you learn more about yourself than the other place or the other country. And that's a problem I know can be solved. And I think it's fascinating because I've been thinking about my grandfather's life and realizing that the insulin crisis is actually my generation, or our generation's problem, and it wasn't his, which is fascinating. It's a present crisis, not a past one. But then I think about people who I've met with all types of different backgrounds and stories, and newly diagnosed and been part of the community for a long time. And a lot of people have been told they can't do something, and a lot of people haven't made the step to find community. And if I could wave the magic wand, I do think it is people, regardless if it's diabetes or not, to find a community that they tie into, to have at least one ally so they can go out and figure things out or have motivation, because it is very difficult to motivate yourself alone. And when you have more obstacles, being I am a white male, I don't have that many obstacles, but then you add diabetes, and then you add technology access to that, and then you add my access to insulin, finding a community that can just help ease the weight that we all have, especially in the pandemic. I think that's where allyship really comes to play. And, we're focusing right now on this bringing types of diabetes together, specifically in hiking in the outdoors, and just saying, hey, come join me and come out here. And I hope as we unite, we start reaching out to other communities. I actually just recently watched Crip Camp, and I realized that the 504 plan, so the federal plan, that's your disability rights when you go through school, that was actually passed by a lot of advocates who are disabled in wheelchairs and wheelchair access. And so wheelchair access actually gave me my rights as a federally disabled person to have certain rights when I go to school, when I go to museums, and when I go to airports. And so as we unite, I hope we're also able to expand into people who are able to empathize with our situation and say, I will stand beside you so you feel safe in the outdoors. I will stand beside you so you have access to this insulin that you need 24 hours a day, that Canadians have and Americans have built these barriers. And there's going to be so many things to accomplish, but I do feel hopeful because past generations have given us a lot of platforms to step on and improve. And so, yeah, I really hope that we're able to wave the magic wand and people to feel like they have at least one person that will help be their voice or give them the strength to, express their own voice.
Fantastic. Oh, I agree. That sounds amazing. I think, and that's what you're doing, right? And I would love to have a magic wand that fixes all the problems in the world. And for a while I thought that I could, but I'm one human and that's not scalable. So that's in our own ways, that's what we're doing. And I love working with you, Erik, because we don't have time to wait for the grownups to fix it. It's time for us to be the grownups. So where can people find you? Obviously, they can go to hikemyfeelings.org/diabadass to enter the giveaway for more than $1,000 worth of hiking gear. But where can people find you and follow along?
Yeah, people can find me personally. If you're listening, it's Erik Douds, ERIK, because I have Scandinavian blood, and then Douds, DOUDS, or Dudes if you know me from high school. That's my nickname. But then Diabadass, so diabadass.com. And our goal is to start rolling out a course, ideally once a month. We got some work to do there, but then that'll link to our videos and advocacy, and just, really ideally bringing film and using film as a medium to share people's stories, because I feel blessed having met so much of the diabetes community that ideally through courses and videos, people can find that knowledge and inspiration and learn from that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us. Feel free to stick around if you want. We're going to chat with the guys from Indubious, jam a little bit, and then we'll wrap up with the group gratitude circle. So if you got nothing else to do, we'd love to have you stick around and rejoin us after these guys get done wowing us with their vocal prowess. Yeah, I got a shrug. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Erik. It's so good to see you. Up next, we have Evan and Skip, brothers and bandmates, along with drummer Maddie T. Wells. They have cultivated a dedicated fan base, affectionately called Indubians, with their impressive instrumental skill, powerful harmonies, and an electrifying stage presence. I'll read the rest of the bio as we get going. But first of all, hi, guys. Welcome. So nice to have you here. I first became aware of you via Zion I, actually. I had him on the show, and he was like, I just started working with these dudes on this sick verse. And I was like, who are they?
Our manager sent us that interview, and his response to us sending him that song was pretty cool, because that was my first time hearing his response to it. It was very, very flattering. It was a good interview.
Yeah,
So which one's which? You're twins.
No, we're not. I'm 2.5 years older. I'm Skip.
Shut up. You look exactly the same to me.
We get that a
lot. It's kind of, I think that twin energy is more than a genetic thing. It's an energetic thing. It's spending that time together in the womb and then being kind of raised at the same time. And we spend more time together than most people probably do or should. But it works out for us. We've kind of become the same person with the same goal, but we're a little bit different.
We came in with a similar life path, and we were able to kind of link up at a very early age with a lot of what we had to go through as kids. And I think that, forged a way for us to have a very close relationship. And I think that translates, because a lot of people think we're twins.
Yeah.
Beyond the appearance. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, because that was so we had originally tried to get you guys on the show last year, and then it just all got jumbled up and mixed up. So I'm so glad that you were able to join us and that this worked out. And one of the things that I was interested in hearing more about was just your journey with wellness, with health, with everything you guys have going on, and how that filters into the music. So introduce yourselves as individuals, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. My name is Evan. They call me Evton B. It's my nickname, my stage name. My health story is, so we were both born with cystic fibrosis. I was diagnosed at birth, and he was diagnosed at 2.5 years old. And so when we were young, they said we're going to live till like we were 16 years old or something. That's what they told my mom. And so it was kind of like, that was looming over our heads, our whole childhood. Relatively healthy childhood, pretty much, until I got into my 20s. My health started to deteriorate. And when I was 27 years old, I received a double lung transplant. Pretty intense. And so we're going on about 10 years now. So this July will be 10 years. And since my transplant, I've pretty much just had fantastic, bounding, vibrant, radiant health.
Yes. I love that. I did not know about the double lung transplant. That must have been
intense.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people find this out and they go, wow, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that, kind of a thing. And I get that perspective. That's not my perspective on it. That's not our perspective on it. Because if I hadn't had these things happen in my life and wasn't born into the life and the body that I was, and be able to experience these really potent, challenging themes, I wouldn't be the person that I am. And I wouldn't know the things that I know. And so it begs the question, when we're going through something terrible, is it really terrible, or is it just an opportunity for growth? And I mean, that's obviously my belief, is that everything is an opportunity for our growth. There's no real difference between a curse and a blessing other than your perspective and how you approach it. So
Lord, hang on a second. I'm in the wrong building for this talk. This feels like church, and I'm not mad about it.
Well, it's always church when you're connected to the truth, because
absolutely.
The truth brings that truth that we are protected and guided and connected to something that's much greater than the randomness and fickleness that is the physical reality, that's the thing that keeps people going. And that's the thing that we teach through our music. And that's the energy we bring through our music, which is why people gravitate to it. And, it's fun, man. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm Skip. I'm his brother, as you can tell. I would say that, growing up, it was a similar situation for me. I was healthier than he was going into his 20s when I was in my 20s. And my health started to decline later. I didn't have to receive a double lung transplant. But I was in the hospital, 2-3 times a year with severe lung infections. All that aside, that's just story stuff. Because what it comes down to really is like, if somebody asked me point blank what CF is to me, I'd say it's probably the greatest blessing I've ever been bestowed, because it gave me so much perception of mortality and what that is. And when we get that at a young age, when we're able to really harness that at a young age and see that for what it is, then everything you get is a gift. And as you move through your life, the gratitude becomes immense, because it's all just gravy. And that's the way it should be for everybody. A lot of people don't get that perception until they're much older. If they're, 60, 70, some health issue comes up, and then all of a sudden they start going through their regrets. They start thinking about the things they should have done and the ways they should have treated themselves and others. And for us, it's literally what is cultivated Indubious to be what it is. And the music that we are put here to create, and our life path wouldn't be possible without this thing that looks like an illness. Well, any of us are only here for a very short time.
The shortest.
So that short time is it's a unique fingerprint from the universe for you to do something amazing with what you've been given. And so those circumstances can either be, they can be curses or they can be blessings, and that's all a matter of perspective. And so that's really, for CF, it's like, for me, I wouldn't have it any other way. Now, the other funny thing about the way it all kind of went down is now Evan's super healthy. I got on a new medication the past year, which completely changed my health. And for the first time in our lives together, we're completely 100% healthy. We had the opportunity of getting the record deal of our dreams with Easy Star. And that basically is putting us on a path of everything that we've ever wanted to do and experience.
It's finally happening.
Yeah.
Yay! Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm at the beginning of something massive. This is wild. Yeah. Congratulations on both fronts. So what was the path like to get to this place where you're perfectly healthy? Like, obviously your entire being oozes gratitude for the experiences you've had, but like, what's it like to go from double lung transplant to sitting here and saying, I am 100% healthy? Like, that's got to be just overwhelmingly awesome, I would think.
Well, I think that in the context of thinking about it and having this conversation, obviously that is the intellectual understanding of how I feel and should feel. It's a little bit different than that. In reality, it's because it's almost like it never happened. It's like, boom, you're healthy. And then it's really easy to sink back into just daily drama or whatever, or the next way in which you're going to improve yourself, or the next way in which your life isn't perfect. You know what I mean? So enlightenment or like spiritual understanding, it's always temporary. It's always in the now. And so like even here, sitting here and having this conversation, it's giving me a perspective and a reminder of how cool it is to be. So it's a constant reminder. And it's not to say that, oh, I've had this crazy experience and now I'm spiritual and perfect and everything's great in my life.
No,
it's not how it is. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more than the average person because of the opportunity that I've been given. But yeah, is that a good answer?
Well, I mean, we're about to get weird because y'all are already like, I was like, this is why Zion and Indubious work together, because like I could talk to Zion till I die about just like stuff that's way up here. So, well, then let's jump into it. I would agree with you. First, I want to touch on the thing that you said. So I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I made radical lifestyle changes. Like, it was just like a thing. It wasn't even, there was not a period where I was like, oh my God, I'm a victim. This is terrible. I was just like, nope, this is my chance to get my shit together. Like, here we go. Yeah. Let's do it. And I've always, and it's so nice to meet other people that have lived through stuff where people are like, that sounds like the worst thing that's ever happened. I'm like, no, actually it's the best. Like, I say, and I've said from the beginning, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, like, I'm so thankful for diabetes. Like, yeah. I'm even thankful for the sexual assault I experienced. And that's not something I'd care to repeat. Yeah. But if it got me to where I am today, okay. Like, because now we're here and we're having these conversations. So I appreciate the part of, it was just like, and now I'm healthy. It's like, it never happened. Like, I sometimes, because, and especially since my healing happened outdoors in nature, just doing the things that I guess humans are supposed to be doing, but we condition ourselves not to do because we have to manufacture this world that we have to live in.
Right.
I felt like I was batshit nuts when I went out and I was hiking and I was healing and my body is like transforming day by day. I was like, I need validation that, one, that I'm still alive, and two, that I'm not hallucinating, because like because it wasn't a doctor in a white coat in a building telling me that this is healing. I was like, is it possible that I can just like walk myself to health? And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. So shoot, I mean, where do we go from here? I want to get real weird and like take it. Where do we want to go? Because all this normal surface human earth stuff, I'm just like, they don't even need this. Let's go up here.
What I was going to say in regards to that, that's an amazing perspective. And I completely agree with the way that you view that, because I think that suffering is the prime focal point of this life in some ways. And what I mean by that is, beyond this life, we come from pure bliss. We come from pure light. We come from pure absolute perfection. And so to come into a place with such contrast, the ability to have something that it has a contrasting experience can only polarize the other experience if you allow it to. And so living in the extremities of those polarities, the suffering we experience has to be catalyzing of the greatest experience that we're going to have. I mean, if you can think of any healing moment in your life, if you think of like the most powerful, just connected moment, it was not possible without pain to juxtapose it, to counterbalance it. And so until we really realize that fundamentally and stop running, because our biology as human beings wants to run towards pleasure and run away from pain. And that's the animal part of us. But in reality, all of those things, they counterbalance each other. You can't have one without the other. We've all heard that cliche, you can't have the sweet without the sour, all that stuff. And it's a cliche, but it's true and it holds up. And so for me, the things that I have seen as the darkest moments of my life have yielded the greatest potential for growth. And the catalyzer to that is our own human perspective on the situation, because suffering can destroy people if they don't have the proper perspective, and it can take them down into that victim mentality you're speaking of, where this is a random universe and things are happening to me from the outside and I have no say in it. And then what you do is you generally reject your own healing, because that's the biggest catalyst right there. And so if we can really take that, like really harness that energy as human beings to see that the bad stuff is actually the good stuff, and there's no real good or bad. It's all what we do and how we kind of pivot off that spot. And so, you taking that mentality in your life, having some things that are quote unquote horrible happen to you, to use those to become a deeper, more fulfilled and enriched person, that's commendable. And that's what we're supposed to be doing here.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do. I was like, well, we could get real depressed real quick if we want to, or we could use this to catalyze some real growth and change on this planet, help people realize what their power is, and then we can all step into our roles as creators on this planet. And so now we're the force that is influencing that stuff that's around us, and we're changing the reality as we know it, because we see it in the way that we see it. And so that's the power we all hold. And so that's really what we want to have come through people. And when we make the music that we make, that's what it is.
Yeah, man. Oh, I love it. So my favorite way to do this show with musical guests, like chat a little bit, let the dogs lose it, and then sing a song, and then we'll chat some more. So do you have a song you'd like to share with us first?
We'll do a song now and then chat a little bit after.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
Song now, talk later. Sounds good. All right. This is a song called Fabric of Creation, because we're all part of a fabric.
It's a pretty
of
good
creation.
Song. Her picture's gone, but I figure it's probably okay for us to play it.
You should play.
Okay, I can hear it.
The voice from up high is saying, go ahead.
We are the fabric of creation. Well, creation, we are the healing of the nation. Yeah, we come to tell them all, sir. We are the fabric of creation. Well, creation, we are the healing of the nation. Yeah. Split apart, memories are wiped clean. Fresh and start, yeah, but we remembering just who we are and who we came to be. Brightest star, imperfect, perfect, imperfect, perfect in soul. Yes, I know I'm strong. Inside we got all what it takes to get along. I'll say, yes, I know I'm strong and we belong. So we belong. Yes, I know I'm strong. Inside we got all what it takes to get along. I'll say, yes, I know I'm strong and we belong. So we belong. We are the fabric of creation. Oh, creation, yo. We are the healing of the nation. Yeah, and we come to tell them all, say, we are the fabric of creation. Of creation, yo. We are the healing of the nation. Yo, yo. Fabric of love. Fabric of love. Look what we are weaving, it's a fabric of love. People rejoice, manifest the miracles with words on our voice. Isn't it nice, that we are creating other things of a choice? Water the roots, reap out the fruits, make a fabric so tight that nothing can undo it. Yes, I know I'm strong. Inside we got our what it takes to get along. I say, yes, I know I'm strong and we belong. So we belong. Yes, I know I'm strong. Inside we got our what it takes to get along. I say, yes, I know I'm strong and we belong. So we belong. Well, we are the fabric of creation. Of creation, yo. We are the healing of the nation. Yeah, we're going to tell them all, sir. We are the fabric of creation. Of creation, yo. We are the healing of the nation. To heal another, to heal your brother, to heal another. To heal another, to heal your brother, to heal another. To heal another, to heal your brother, to heal another. To heal another, to heal your brother, to heal another.
Well, dang. Oh Lord, it's just so good. So you guys are based in Oregon, yes?
Yeah. We are. We live in Bend, Oregon.
Oh, I've heard such lovely things about Bend. I've heard there's a handful of outdoorsy kinds of things to do there, just like a few.
There's a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
It's very good. You should come visit.
Yes. Oh, don't threaten me with a good time. So question, on the CF side of things, with lungs being an impacted part of the body in this condition. What has that been like? Like what was life like for you before COVID? And what was life like last year? Like, were you, because I know you have a new album out. Were you planning to tour with that? Like what musically within the CF world, what was that like before COVID and after?
Well, I'd say something really amazing that happened during COVID is my whole entire life. If I was to get a cold, it meant 2 weeks in the hospital, easy. And so what I would see is this general laissez-faire attitude towards colds. You'd be hanging out in a group of 5 people, it'd be like, oh, I just have this cold. And it's like, and nobody cared. And so nobody's, they have no perception of it. And so what I saw was an awareness of people and their own, I think it took something that was causing fear for people that were healthy to really, make a concerted effort to care for those that weren't, which I think is a really generally pretty good thing.
Yeah, there's been an energetic shift of awareness, like I don't really like shaking hands just because I'm immunosuppressed. Like I don't really want to touch your hand, nothing personal. But now like the fist bump is like, I've always been a proponent of the fist bump, but now the fist bump is like widely accepted and totally understood and not weird,
Less of those awkward moments where they're like, and you're like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Oh man. So musically, what were you guys doing before the pandemic hit, and what have you been up to since?
Well, we had a lot planned, and so did a lot of people, but we all know what happened is that all the plans went out the window and life changed, which was really, really good in a lot of ways, man. And it's been really good for a lot of people because I think we live under the illusion that we get to control things. We get to control our life. But when that gets all stripped away from you, I mean, there's so many good things. My mind's going all over the place. But when that gets all stripped away from you, you're kind of left with the reality that is, the real reality of what your life is and your relationships with your loved ones and your relationship with yourself and things like your anxiety and your mental health and the way that, the way that you relate to yourself in the world. And COVID has been fantastic, incredible time for self-introspective work for myself. I know it's been that way for a lot of people. Musically, we had this whole big tour planned, it's going to be our best year ever. And it was all canceled. And so at first I was like, this sucks. I was not happy.
Going back to our first conversation.
Yeah. I at first I did not like that feeling, but that feeling only lasted for a few days. And then I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So everything's canceled. I just get to sit here and do whatever I want. And there's no pressure. And so it kind of opened itself up to this real easy feeling of like, yeah, it's all good. Let's just hang out and have a good time. And then one ended up coming. I believe that feelings are really have the most powerful manifestational power to them. It's really the feelings. And so what that feeling ended up attracting for us was a lot of really cool, powerful collaborations kind of fell into place, and this whole album ended up getting birthed. And we basically finished a whole album, really wrote it from start to finish within like a month or two, and then just spent some time fine tuning it and getting all the, label stuff and artwork and all ready for a long time. But it turned out to be one of the best years, man. And I got basically a whole year off to like stay at home with my 2.5-year-old daughter, which is great. There's nothing really much to complain about there.
Yeah. I mean, I think also it was just such a big collective shadow side reemergence for so many people on planet Earth. And so we've seen people either do one of two things with those things, right? We've seen them go inside and then realize that they had so much stuff that they needed to heal and to do the work to do that. And then we've seen the other people that will project out like everything in the world is the issue. Everything outside of myself is the issue, because everybody's, feeling pretty intense by having to sit alone with themselves for so long. A lot of people have never done that.
Ever.
And so to see that on a grand scale is an amazing thing. And like Evan said, I mean, going back to our original conversation, I think that, you know, we had a very busy summer planned, a lot of really amazing festivals and things to do that were going to be amazing. And they all kind of just went like this. And so we could have easily been like, well, this sucks. But by redirecting that energy, by like taking our energy and going like, okay, what are we going to do? We were able to cultivate something that had we not done it, we wouldn't even be close to where we are right now. So it was a beautiful thing. It was almost as if it was perfect. It's just
right. And there's a part of me that is starting to fade away more and more into the background that like felt really guilty for saying that, because so much suffering is happening and so many people have died just in this country alone, let alone around the world, and homelessness and unemployment and all the things, social uprising. But like on the other side of all of that, there's more understanding, there's more compassion, there's more empathy, there's more people caring about a lot of things, and mental health in particular, like in our space here, that's everything. Like everything we do is about guided self-discovery. Everything is rooted in like healing ourselves and taking responsibility for that, and knowing that like, yeah, things happen to us, but what we do with that is ultimately how we live a life, and that's the legacy we leave. So I'm pleased, not pleased, I'm stoked to hear all of your thoughts around that, because we're very much on the same wavelength. And I think if there was one thing that I am like super curious about is just like, what now that, because we are in this like very interesting moment in time, both like as a human race and just like life on Earth in general, what would you hope to see us take away from this experience and bring into the next chapters of our lives here on Earth as humans?
I'd like to see, like touching on what we just spoke to, I'd like to see the perspective shift from people taking care of themselves as selfish to absolutely the most compassionate thing that we can do for other people on this planet. The more you're able to fill your cup to take care of the things you need to take care of without guilt or shame surrounding those things, the more you're able to love yourself. That's the only way anything's going to change externally. And so a lot of unhealed people are trying to heal the world. And what I recommend is that we go inside and we really do the work on ourselves. We get real honest with ourselves, and we feel that all those painful feelings that we didn't want to feel, and we gather those remnants back to ourselves. Because as we do that, as we gather those remnants back and put that love back inside of ourselves, then with a full tank, we can put our hand in so many things compassionately and actually do that particular issue justice. So I'd like to see through this whole pandemic an ancient reemergence of sovereignty, compassion for self that can extend outwardly. Because if we don't have that, we won't get really far. Then you're just a hurt person that's trying to fix things in the world, when that needs to be directed inside first. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, nothing will get done in the way we desire it to be.
Yeah. I have something to add to that. You know, I would really like for it to be common understanding and knowledge, the fact that the way we feel about others, the depth of which we can love others, and the ways that we judge others is really how we feel about ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's a mirror, because we get caught in the delusion that it's very similar to what you're saying. People are super caught in the delusion that we're going to change the world by forcing other people to change. And it does not work. We change ourselves, and watch what happens when you change yourself. Because when you change yourself, people around you, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because it's real. Not just like you, but like the people around you change. Your relationships change. And then the world changes, because the filter through which that you're looking at the world, it actually changes. So people could sit around all day and talk about ways in which the world is flawed and evil and bad, and you will find millions of countless, endless reasons why that is the case. And likewise, you could sit around and talk about how everything is improving, how beautiful things are, how much there is to be grateful for, and how much to love, and you will find endless examples of that. So you get to choose. We get to choose.
You do, and it's funny. I've shared this story with our community recently, but things were after the assault that I experienced. I didn't tell anybody for 11 years, and things were decidedly difficult. Like I ate my feelings, I drank my feelings.
Yeah.
That's what led. So some of those behaviors led and contributed to my diagnosis for type 2 diabetes, and that's where the name of our organization comes from. Diabetes helped me through hiking. I was hiking my feelings instead of eating and drinking my feelings in pursuit of managing this disease.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So when we talk about, and everything you just said, like, I don't want to regurgitate what you just said, but like, that is at the root of everything we do here. Like one of the key phrases that we throw around in our programs at Hiking My Feelings is like, what's best for me is what's best for everyone always, because I can't offer my best to anyone if I can't get to my best. And if I just stay in this unhealed space, then I'm less of a good person. Just in general, I'm less of a great friend. I'm less of a good sister, sibling, whatever. And when we're able to do this work, which is so deeply personal, but in community, and realize that we're not alone. And like, there is so much more that we have in common than we have differences. Like, and I think that's one of the things that Erik and I were kind of talking about before you guys joined was, if I look at the terrible things that have happened to me, those are the biggest gateways to community for me. Like 1 in 3 women will experience sexual assault before the end of her life. 1 in 6 men. Every 73 seconds, someone's raped in America. Like it's a terrible statistic, but every 73 seconds, I have something in common with someone.
Yeah.
And if we look at diabetes as a whole, like every 23 seconds, someone's diagnosed with diabetes in America. Like I meet a new brother or sister in diabetes every 23 seconds. Like if we stop looking at these things because I think you're right. Like if we're programmed for pleasure and not pain, and we go towards ease, especially in this day and age, if we're going towards ease versus like, you might have to put in some effort, then we lose this opportunity to really reflect on and reframe these things that certainly weren't easy. Like living with cystic fibrosis, not easy. Living with diabetes, not easy, but like, it's not the worst thing either. So I love the perspective on that. And I think when it comes to the music that you make, like the song you just played, I'm like, I hear songs on Spotify, I hear songs on the radio, wherever, watch YouTube videos, but like and Zoom is pretty close, but there's just something magic about seeing the people perform it. And even just sitting in your space here, I'm like, these guys feel this with every ounce of their body. Like, what is your writing process like? What's the process behind the lyrics? Like, are you guys singing and songwriting and doing all of it? Like, tell me everything about how you create what you just shared with us, because it was spectacular.
Without risking sounding like a complete crazy, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like, I feel like it's a complete channeling.
That's not crazy. I agree with that. And I see that.
Like there's something that's far beyond my own human perception of this avatar, my own personality, my persona, who I am as a human being. There's something far beyond that creates this music through us, because we allow it to be so. And the reason that it is so is because we do the work on ourselves to keep ourselves healthy, whole, happy, doing the inner work that we need to do to
properly tuned
yes.
that don't want to project outwardly into the world of problems. We want to bring through something that's much greater than ourselves through the music. And so that's the esoterics version of what it is. And I think Evan and I have always had a unique writing process. Lately, Evan's been producing a lot of the music. He's gotten really fantastic at that. We've always written music together and sometimes separately, and we bring it back together. We have these situations where one of us will write a song and then the other person puts a verse on it, and it somehow works perfectly all the time. And so
perfectly all the time.
It took me weird puzzle.
I love it
to think of it like not absolutely synchronistically perfect.
I've been developing I'm sorry, do you want to say something?
No, go.
Okay. I've been developing a kind of a theory about it all lately that's really been working well for me. My general life kind of modus operandus, or whatever they say, I think that, the harder you try, sometimes the worse it turns out. So it's kind of like letting it flow. And this has transferred over into the writing process really big. And I think that these songs already, I like to think of it as these songs and albums, they already exist. And all I'm doing is allowing it to come through. So I'm just not getting in the way by over intellectualizing it or needing it to be something that I think in my mind. So I'm allowing something to come through, and I'm just kind of feeling my way through and trusting in the process.
Are you shaping the clay, or is the clay shaping you, brother?
That's what I want to know. It's chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I want to hang out with you guys. Like, when are we going to go? Do you like hiking? Tell me you like hiking, please.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Fantastic. I'm like, I need to get up to, well, because Lori Sweets was originally, she was like, you know who you should have on is Indubious. And I was like, funny you mentioned that. We tried that last year. I'm glad to have him back. But my reasons and my excuses for getting up to Oregon just keep compiling. I'm really excited about it.
Really like Bend. There's a lot of really good hiking around here.
That's
and
amazing.
There's great snowboarding. There's great climbing.
Okay. Well, I like all of that. What, since this is the virtual campfire and the idea is we're sharing stories of hope and healing and inspiration, which all of this so far has been, have you had any experiences in nature where you're just like, yup, this is what it's all about? Because that's every time I go outside, that's how I feel. I'm like, and I found my place in the world. Anything like that for you guys, healing in nature?
Naturally. I'm into, I've always been into psychedelic research and medicine for healing and for different components of life. And found at an early age, I've had experiences with mushrooms and different things, and was introduced to a medicine called iboga, which is an African psychedelic that the Bwiti tribe of Gabon has been using for thousands of years. And it's a root bark that's ingested, and that has changed my life considerably. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not only is that nature, but it has given me more of a connection to nature that I'll put it this way. I always had it, but I didn't realize what was actually going on around me until I had some of these experiences. And so the living order of life, the way that life actually is, we are nature. We are completely nature. And we exist in that world, and all of these entities, these plant entities, water is a living creature on this earth. It holds memories. It holds, the molecules can be imbued with grace and gratitude and love, and it transfers into our body when we drink this. And so we can't get away from being nature. It's about remembering what we actually are. And then when we have those experiences out in nature, we can, it's not a separate thing.
Right.
The earth, we didn't come to earth, the earth made us. And so we're both the spirit, and we're both the nature of it. And so for me, nature is a huge part of influence. I look to nature to see the nature of myself. And so I'll see the way that water flows, or I'll see the way that, rocks move or tumble. And those things, they tell me the nature of life. Because if we look closely at nature, we can see every single thing that can possibly happen to humanity on a walk.
Right.
So it's having a reverence for that, and a recombination with it, or like rejoining what we actually come from, that I feel is a big component of healing for everybody on this planet, not only for themselves, but also for the planet. And so as we start to integrate that back into, our framework as human beings, which I think, honestly, COVID has done a great job of that as well. And remembering who we are and what we come from, I think that we'll take better care of what's around us, because it's absolutely us. We think it's separate. It's not. It's who and what we are. And so I've had many transcendent experiences in nature. I feel like every time I'm in nature, that's what it is for me.
Yeah, same. And that's why I just can't quit. It's so good.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that, and Skip, you had said something, and Evan, you had said something as well, like remembering is coming up a lot. And Evan, when you were talking about writing and channeling and being a vehicle for these songs that are already written, that's been a theme that I've been thinking about. I think about thinking a lot. This is a thing I do. But it's Kaleo mentioned it as we were setting intentions around the campfire at the retreat that we hosted last weekend with Kaleo from Pepper and K-Bong from Stick Figure, and Melanie, Kaleo's wife. We were all setting intentions, and Kaleo said, "I'm here to remember." And I've been thinking about remembering ever since he said that, because like in this case, this was like for most of the people that were there, this was our first gathering that we've done since everybody's been locked down. And it was, like the big takeaway for me was like just remembering what it's like to be in other people's energy, because I've been doing this Zoom stuff for over a year where we've managed to create some really intimate, safe, beautiful opportunities for connection via Zoom, but you can't beat a hand on the shoulder and like being able to actually like see somebody's face and feel it. Cause I deeply feel people's energy.
The heart biofield. I mean, we're literally creatures that emanate a biofield of heart math out 10 feet from us.
Yeah.
To be in that presence of another human being is not only good for us, it's necessary for our survival.
100%. And I feel that so much this weekend, but this theme of remembering just keeps like hammering, and I don't have the words for it completely yet, but I think like ultimately that's really all we're here to do, right? Like we're remembering these songs that are already written and we're bringing them forth to the world. We're remembering what it's like to be in the space of other humans after a year of being shut up and isolated in our own homes. And we're remembering, like every time I go outside and every time I heal something, the knowledge might be new to me in this body on this planet, but like deep inside my body is like this knowing, like, of course, oh my God, duh. And like, that's how I felt when I was learning how to manage diabetes. I was like, oh, of course food is medicine. But like that knowledge has been beat out of us as a society for the last however 50, 100 years. And it's just like, everything just feels like coming home. And that's ultimately like, that's what we're doing with everything we try to do at Hiking My Feelings, is like giving people a space where healing is possible and they can come home to themselves. And I feel that very much with your music. Like, I feel like and obviously I've heard it before, but I feel like I know this on a deeper level than is possible for me to consciously comprehend.
I think for me, it's a good indicator of like hearing truth. Because when I hear something and it's the feeling of remembering, not learning, it's like, okay, yeah, and it gives you like that almost like,
it's like, yeah,
you're like, whoa, that's it's beyond our human minds to understand the depth of information and multi-dimensional experiences that our souls are enmeshed in. But we know that something's happening.
When you're the entire universe, you were the Big Bang with amnesia.
Yeah.
That's literally what you're experiencing, and what we're waking up to and remembering is that we think we are the thing that we're doing. We're literally playing a role in a play. And the universe is doing this cool thing where it decided to have this amazing experience where it thinks it's in a very dangerous spot and an isolated creature. So, I mean, because why not? Why wouldn't you? If you were the universe and you could do everything that you wanted to do for thousands and millions of years, you'd eventually want a little bit of danger, wouldn't you? You want it to feel like, what am I and what's going on? You'd want that. And so we're waking up beyond that illusion. And so when we do wake up beyond that, we realize that we literally are it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing different. We're not separate from God. God isn't a thing that we aren't. We are literally experiencing ourselves, which is us, which is the one, thinking we're different ones. And so beautiful, but we're waking up through that. And so as we do that, you'll realize you have connection to absolutely any piece of information that you want, because it's all there and you've had it all along.
Yeah.
So it's a process of forgetting. Remember, we're like
100%
eating things and adding other things, because it's all there. It's all there.
Yeah. My husband says it a lot, and I don't recall where it comes from, but like, we are not separate from nature. We are nature, just like the wave is not separate from the ocean. It is part of it. Like, it is the whole thing. And I love that. So before I ask you the magic wand question, do you have another song you'd like to share with us?
Sure.
Awesome. And I'm going to turn off my camera because you guys get center stage. You don't need to see me dancing and singing along.
Me. Oh, what's a funny, funny time. It's more than meets the eye. People have lost their mind. They only see what the money buys. But I'm not the only one. I feel love from the sun. There's a place that we can go. We can learn how the magic flows. Well, hold on. Until you will see shine. Well, hold on. Yeah. Don't move till you see shine. 'Cause I see shine in desperate times. See shine, the feeling next time. Shows up like an image in my mind. I try hard and it goes goodbye. 'Cause when you reach, you push away. So become a welcoming. You gotta see that everything is the way that it should be. Well, hold on. Soon you will see shine. Well, hold on. Don't move till you see shine. Had more than a blessed life, but we don't got a lot of time. So we speak up in the moment it arrives. Oh gosh, what's on my mind? 'Cause I love you and I love this world. And I'm sorry for the ones I've hurt. Thank you for what it's worth, for helping me to see shine. Well, hold on. Soon you will see shine. Well, hold on. Don't move till you see shine.
The crowd goes wild. Yeah.
Golf clap.
Small
so that's
snaps.
C sharp, and it's spelled SEE sharp. Soon you will see sharp. But
Oh,
C
I
sharp
love
is
it.
the resonant frequency of planet Earth.
The tonal vibration of the earth.
That we happen to be standing upon. So I find that.
Yes. I love these nuggets. So, well, before I've got more questions. How are you guys doing on time?
Fine.
We're doing good.
Okay, cool, great. Because I got a couple more questions. I was like, we should really start to wrap it up, but I don't. So, okay.
You.
So on this note, so we have a playlist for the virtual campfire for all the artists that come and share their stories and their songs with us.
Sure.
We've added the songs that you've played so far, but one of the great things I love about the show and our community in general is like most people that come here are not aware of or deeply steeped in this genre of music. So if I'm like, I've never listened to Indubious in my life, are there any other songs, one or two, that are like quintessential Indubious songs that we should include on the playlist?
Well, we have a couple of singles.
We have so much music. It's hard to say. I would lend towards the newer stuff.
Yeah, like
probably The Offering.
The Offering. So we have The Offering with featuring Sizzla and Skillinja. That just came out. Also, just before that was Ease and Flow with Mike Love. Those are two great ones.
Nice.
And then the Zion I track, Never Bow with Zion I.
Dude, such a good song. I can't. I love it. I just texted him. I was like, God, these dudes are dope. You weren't kidding. Also, so similar to the question I asked Erik, and I think we've kind of touched on a lot of this, like the things we'd hope we'd like to see, but with everything that's going on in the world today, for the people that are earthlings that aren't quite awake to all of the power that we do have, what would you like to wave a magic wand and fix or supplement or bestow knowledge upon people? Both of you. I want to hear it from both of you.
Well, I think
the face you made, I am ready for this answer.
Like, how do I put this gently? I think that the want and the need to want to change reality is rooted in a belief that it's not perfect already. I'm not a big magic wander. My magic wand would be to help people realize that they already are the magic wand. Because when you can see reality, you could choose to see it through whatever perspective or window. And the way that you know what window is going to work is based on feeling, what feels the best. And that is the magic wand. We already are doing it all of the time. We're always crafting our surroundings and we're always waving our wand. So this is not a hypothetical, because it's real in my life. And my magic wand says that all is in divine order. Yes, there is suffering on the earth, and it's not to take away the fact I'm not saying I don't have compassion for that, but I understand what comes from the human experience. And it's all in divine order. Skip?
You stole my answer. No, not really. If I had a magic wand, it's similar to what Evan said. I would wave a magic wand and let everybody else know that they already have a magic wand. And that magic wand is called their own.
So basically it's exactly what I said, and you're kind of stealing my idea. Is that what you're trying to say?
Saying it way better.
Okay, that's fine.
So to wave that magic wand and remind people of their own inherent power, what they're actually capable of doing on this planet by loving themselves exactly where they are, meeting them today right where they are. So one of these things about, this shadow work everybody talks about. One thing that I'd like to bring to light here is your shadow isn't bad parts of yourself. It never was bad parts of yourself. It is remnants that you've rejected because you thought they were bad. And without full acceptance, and basically you're calling back all those parts to yourself so that you can love yourself exactly where you are without changing yourself. And so at that level of magic wand's irrelevant, because if we knew what power we had, we wouldn't need magic wands. We would just need who we are and love ourselves for exactly where we are. And then we'd see such magic come from our wands anyway, that it wouldn't matter. And wands. So my hope is that
we are the wands.
Everybody brings back all of the pieces of themselves that they thought were not acceptable, so that they could now see the beauty in others the same way that they're beautiful.
Tear.
Yeah, single tear. Where's my Oscar?
Tearing.
Oh my God, love. So on that note then, because I could honestly talk to you guys till I die. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you're like psyched to talk about, or anything that's on your heart and mind where you're like,
new album. We so Easy Star Records, the album's called The Bridge, and it's featuring some of the most amazing artists on planet Earth today. This is the artwork. I made that.
Ooh, hey.
Applause when you're ready. There you go.
Dude, that vinyl looks dope. What?
Yep. And so that's coming out April 9th on Easy Star Records. It'll be available everywhere.
And we're doing a sweepstakes contest right now, where if you pre-order the album, or even if you just go and like our Facebook page or something simple, you enter to win a bunch of different prizes. We have some really cool prizes. We're giving away our own studio microphone. We're giving away a Kala U bass and a ukulele. We're giving away a bunch of really dope gifts.
And if anybody else is interested in hearing us talk at length about random stuff, we do have a podcast. It's called Living Indubiously Podcast. It's available on Apple Music, Spotify, all those podcasty.
Would you like to come on our podcast sometime, Sydney?
I would love to.
Be fantastic.
I would die. That would be so much fun. I wouldn't actually die. But so Living Indubiously, I love this phrase. Tell listeners what this means, because this is like your tagline. This is the name of your band. Where does this come from?
So the word dubious means doubtful, right? Like, doubtful. And indubious means not doubtful, sure of oneself. So living indubiously is a state of knowing, there's no fear, no doubt. It's certainty in the fact that we are here for a reason, and everything is connected and guided, and it's all going to be okay.
And much like what we talked about today, the good and the bad are not the good and the bad. It's more, so living indubiously could be, there's parallels to the Buddhist middle way, where we see everything as sort of a flow, a Zen state, where it's the ability to live in between the lines of good and bad and no longer be so affected by those things that were pulled out of our center.
That's a new definition, bro. That's the first time I heard that one.
I'm just making it up as I go along.
That's great.
Channeling new definitions, remembering new definitions, hair toss. I love it. Oh my gosh. So you're in Oregon. So you guys have shows coming up. One of the gals here. So Cindy, Mary, go ahead and pop on your cameras. We'll chat some. One of the gals is like, she's going to be there April 6th or April 16th in Portland. What, where do I come see you? How does this work?
Well, they're all sold out, so you guys can't come. Sorry.
Oh,
yes, I'm grateful to have tickets to a sold out show.
You got
tickets. All right.
We actually did just announce a second Portland show on the 15th because the first one sold out really fast. So there's a second one now. I think there's still tickets for that one.
That's
rad. Jack London Review.
Yes, we have a 4-top.
That is so cool.
Yep.
That's gonna be
so, Cindy or Mary, do you have questions for Skip and Evan before we jump into gratitude?
I don't have any questions. I want to say that I love your message. It's awesome. And just the whole vibe of this whole thing with Erik and then followed up with you guys. Are you kidding me? This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, good stuff. And again, grateful to have tickets to a sold out show.
Grateful that there's shows to get tickets for. What?
That's right.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Mary, any questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you guys work with any organizations in the CF world that you work closely with?
Okay. We just, by signing with Easy Star Records for this new record that we're doing, they've actually put us on with a consultant that's working on some of those avenues for us, the CF avenues. And so, and remember the name of the...
I do not, but yeah, we're interested in that. It's just, we don't really live as, oh, I'm a person with cystic fibrosis. We talk about it in these types of settings because it's interesting, but it's not something that we really identify with. And we haven't for so long, but that's not to say that we aren't interested in being involved in that, because I feel like our message and our music and just our general story would be very, very well received, gobbled up by, you know, people with CF, families with little kids with CF, you know, and our intention is to help. I think it'd be a really good way to help people.
Absolutely. And then also, I think when we started Indubious, we had the intention of not really making that the flagship of what we were doing, because it would have been really easy to become the CF band or the, you know, and have that be the you know, the kind of the crowning mark of what you do on planet Earth. So we decided to kind of forge ahead, make a name for ourselves. And I think we've collectively discussed that now we're ready to kind of enter back into that world so that we can, you know, lend our voices and advocacy for people growing up and being healthy and those types of things. So
that's so rad.
Shows up. I think we'll end up doing some stuff. So
well, I dig it.
I look forward to following that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, let's jump into a group gratitude circle. This is something we like to do at the end of our events, because sometimes we talk about heavy stuff and sometimes we talk about awesome stuff. But at the end of the day, there's always something to be grateful for. And gratitude is one of my favorite ways to pull myself out of the dark and twisty and remember that life is grand. So for me, I am grateful to everybody that's signed up so far for Take a Hike Diabetes. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, today we hit 10,000 miles towards our 1 million mile goal, and we have raised $10,000 so far. So I'm grateful for the companies that have taken a risk on a young organization and this little number here that's leading it and showing up for the diabetes community in spaces and ways that they haven't previously. So thank you to all the risk takers out there that are making the world a better place for people with diabetes. And I'm grateful to have Skip and Evan here and Erik earlier, and just to have this space and to be able to have these conversations and share in this way. So thank you both for being here. What are you guys grateful for?
I'm grateful for my emotional compass, that I accept, you know, the highs and the lows of my all the different frequencies that I orient with, and that I know that even if I'm feeling really bad, that just means everything's working. and that it's showing me ways in which my beliefs might be a little wonky or ways in which I can improve. And it's always there, and it's always working. And sometimes it doesn't feel that great, but that is a necessary part of the human experience. Thanks, Felix.
Nobody can do what you do. I'm tremendously grateful for the outpouring of support that Indubious has seen, more so in the past few weeks than ever before, really. Absolutely grateful for everybody that listens to what we have to say and helps me to kind of, the more I speak what I believe, the more I start to know what it is that I truly believe and what it is that I am grateful for. The perception of gratitude, I guess I'm grateful for. The ability to see beyond the circumstances in my life that seem overwhelming into a field of pure joy for the gift of life, for the breath of life, what we've been given on this planet Earth, the ability to commune with others like yourself, to be able to use our voice and uplift others through, our own gratitude. And so I give thanks for the giving of thanks, just to be able to do this, to sit here and be able to say I'm thankful is a wonderful gift to be here,
Yes, indeed. The great fullness of life, as our friend Christy Nelson from the Network for Grateful Living says, the great fullness of life. Cindy, how about you?
I am grateful for my continued broadening of perspective and just awareness of things that are going on right in front of you that you just don't even realize. Eric referencing insulin and lack thereof. In other countries, you can get it for free. Hearing these guys talk about cystic fibrosis and, living with that, and how it, you view it as a gift, and how it's just a perspective that I don't have. And then I hear it, it's like, wow, listen to that. That's just, So I'm grateful to have some added perspective and always being able to broaden that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And Mary, how about you?
I'm just feeling really grateful for who I am and where I am. It's been hard for me to really see that until recently. So, still trying to find the words to describe who I am and where I am, but I can feel it, which feels really good to feel who I am and where I am. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yes. All right. Well, sweet. So next week we have, oh shoot, who do I have next week? I think I have Dan from Cali Roots. Pretty sure. Yep.
Good old Dan.
Good old Dan. He puts together like this casually awesome, super radical music festival called the California Roots and Art Festival. Yeah. So Dan's joining us next week to talk about all the things that happen when you run one of the best music festivals in the world and what happens to the future of music. So we're really excited to chat with him and hear more of his story. For everybody that's on YouTube, we're going to wave goodbye.